You're looking at one of the wealthiest men in Padan Aram. His name, Jacob, son of Isaac.
After having moved here almost 20 years ago, this man has done quite well for himself.
He says it's all because of his agreement to pay God 10% of everything he makes. Ido the Seer will talk with Jacob about that practice in tonight's The Way I See It.
That's all coming up next on the Zion 7 Report.
You're watching the Zion 7 Report, a comprehensive news magazine reporting today's news as it happens. With anchors Adam Ziklag and Eve Havila, plus news commentary with Ido the Seer. The Zion 7 Report.
According to Forum magazine, Jacob, son of Isaac, is one of the wealthiest men on earth. But believe it or not, good fortune hasn't always followed Jacob.
At one time, this same Jacob was homeless, having to sleep outside using a rock for a pillow.
Homeless person Aman Reboam says he remembers Jacob during the less fortunate days.
He didn't even have a cart when I met him. Talk about hitting rock bottom. I mean, the man was delusional. Woke up one morning, said he'd seen angels walking up and down the staircase. Said God talked to him. Told him everybody on earth was going to be blessed through him. And to top it off, he takes this rock he's been using as a pillow, stands it upright, pours oil on it, calls it God's house. Now you tell me, is that the kind of man you think would end up with all the money?
Jacob may have seemed delusional to some, but there were others who could tell that Jacob was destined for greatness.
One of the people who knew that Jacob would come out on top was his own mother, Rebecca.
I always knew that boy would make it. I knew he had some spunk about him when he went for my plan to trick his father for the birthright. I mean, Esau's a good kid, but he never tries to clean himself up. He's always dressed like such a slob. I mean, his clothes are wrinkled and his hair's all matted together like he just woke up. And the smell? He smells like he'd been sleeping out there with the pigs.
Well, Jacob may have had the support of his mother all these years, but a mother's confidence alone is not enough to make you successful.
According to Jacob, it was his continual investment into the kingdom of God that caused him to succeed.
Zion 7 spoke with financial analyst Sadat Peleg to find out the advantages of investing into God's kingdom.
While it is true that the investment into stocks, bonds, and mutual funds can prove to have a substantial rate of return on your money, it cannot compare to the rate of return offered by the kingdom of God. Here it would seem the very windows of heaven are opened when one brings 1/10 of their income to God and makes him a partner in their finances. Plus, when you bring 1/10 to the kingdom of God, you are automatically covered with personal property and health insurance regardless of the size of the deposit.
Even with Jacob's well-defined investment strategy, he still had to deal with his deceptive uncle Laban.
Reportedly, Laban would change Jacob's wages without notice, making it difficult for Jacob to actually know what he would be paid for his labor.
Zion 7 correspondent Sarah, daughter of Josiah, spoke with Jacob's wives, Rachel and Leah, about the way their father treated Jacob.
Jacob was even tricked by his uncle Laban on Jacob's wedding day. He went to sleep thinking he had married this one, but when he woke up, he was married to this one. I asked these daughters of Laban about the way their father treated Jacob.
He's never been very fair with Jacob.
And what's so unfair about having to marry me?
I wasn't talking about you.
Oh, yes, you were, and you know it.
No, I was talking about how Daddy changed what he was going to pay Jacob about 10 different times.
Oh, yeah, he did do that.
Now, how did Jacob manage to come out ahead with Laban doing that?
Well, by paying God 1/10 of all that he made. It was the tithe that kept the windows of heaven open and kept Daddy from stealing all of his money.
Oh, yeah, and like they say, behind every successful man is at least one good woman.
Yes, moi.
Oh, and how many children have you ever had for him?
I warned you, if you ever said anything like that again, I was...
Oh, yeah, sure.
I'm serious.
For the Zion 7 Report, I'm Sarah, daughter of Josiah.
What do you... I can't believe you would say anything about it.
Well, it's clear that Laban has been unfair with Jacob throughout their relationship. The question is, why would Jacob continue to stay in Padan Aram with his uncle treating him this way?
Ido the Seer will talk with Jacob about that in tonight's The Way I See It. That's all coming up right after this.
The following is a public service announcement from the NCAPA, the National Council for the Abolishment of Physical Abuse.
Sometimes I think we can all be just a little too judgmental, don't you? Seems to me like it wouldn't hurt if we stopped and examined our own lives before we let things get out of hand. You know, the one without any sin cast the first stone. Yeah, you gotta admit, forgiveness is a much better policy. This message brought to you by the National Council for the Abolishment of Physical Abuse.
It's time for The Way I See It with Ido the Seer.
Good evening and welcome to The Way I See It. I'm your host, Ido the Seer. Many people have called tonight's guest a self-made man, but according to him, he wouldn't have anything if it weren't for the blessing of God. Jacob, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ido. It's a pleasure being here.
Jacob, you're smart, you're handsome, you're loaded, you've got it all going on. Tell me, why are you hanging around with this Uncle Laban?
Well, I gave Uncle Laban my word that I would work until certain projects were completed.
Yes, but it's widely known that he has lied.
Well, yes, but if I don't keep my word, then I'll be just like him. Uncle Laban can't steal from me as long as I honor God with the first fruits of my income. He might try, but God will give me everything I need.
You can't go in there. Come on, you can't. There you are.
Uncle Laban, what are you doing?
I want to talk about the goats.
This is my Uncle Laban.
Uncle Laban!
Love your show, man. Jacob, help me with this now. Didn't we agree that you would get all the unspotted goats and I would get the spotted ones?
No, we agreed that you would get all of the unspotted goats and then I would get all the spotted ones.
Well, the spotted goats outnumber the unspotted ones. I know I didn't agree to that.
Yes, you did.
So I'm changing my mind.
You can't do that.
What do you mean I can't do that? I own the company.
Okay. All right, you go right ahead and do that. But you know what? God will give me everything I need anyway.
Here. Now, don't talk to me like that. You're my nephew.
Something tells me we've been here a time or two before, kiddos. Remember this. Some people will never keep the word, but God always keeps his word. You honor God with your first 1/10 of your income, and he'll see to it that you're never shortchanged. I'm Ido the Seer, and that's the way I see it.
Thank you, Ido.
Well, now we know how Jacob managed to stay on top all those years.
He's kept a good attitude, for one thing.
And he kept honoring God with the tithe.
Both are important.
That's right.
Well, that's our program for this evening.
Tune in next week for more late-breaking news
on the Zion 7 Report.
Good night.